Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Claycomb.
Oh, I'm Susan Jennings-Lantz.
I am the director of the Humanities Center, which houses the Campus Read. Susan is the
Ghost of Christmas Past.
once and future director. Susan is
a friend of the Campus Read.
A very close friend that may also be the soul of the Campus Read. And what we want to do is spend a little time talking today about sort of where the Campus Read is and where we're going. So we're very excited. You want to get the next slide? First, let's talk about Station 11, which was our Campus Read for last year. Station 11 was a beautiful book. It was, from what I heard from students, it was a book that they enjoyed reading, but once they read it, didn't generate huge numbers of conversations. But we had a great conversation with Emily St. John Mandel. Next slide.
Oh, wait. Can I say something about that, too?
Next slide, and then you can say something. We have a whole shtick. It's great. So the thing here is that we ended up doing, we changed the programming that we did a little bit to focus around academic style conversations, which had small but dedicated followings, so that what we ended up doing, we had a number of events, 22 different events who came. The big one was our Survivor Weekend at Up All Night. There was a really fantastic, the Department of Biology sort of took this pandemic thing. Rita Ryo from biology worked with the Smithsonian for one of their traveling exhibitions, and so they had this thing up on easels all year long on pandemics. And then Art in the Libraries also did several exhibits that were connected in more and less direct ways to that. So Susan, what do you want to add?
I wanted to add that one thing that we tried this year that was a little different is that we partnered with Adventure West Virginia for Station 11, and it's a book about survival, right? So we worked with the people who were the academic leaders for all the Adventure West Virginia students who were going out into the woods with our freshmen over the summer. And they all had to go out in the woods and camp and hike as a group together as a team, and they all took a copy of the Campus Read about survival while they were in the woods surviving, and it was a big success. They enjoyed it immensely, and they were able to really use some of the themes with the students who were in Adventure West Virginia. That's just a new program that we really partnered with this year that I wanted to spotlight because it worked out very well.
And we'll be doing that again in the coming year as well. So Station 11 was what I would like to say a mitigated success, but we've also kind of been rethinking where the Campus Read might live on our campus, and we may have some changes coming up in the future. But this year, we kind of want to go all in on a book that is, I'm going to say, catnip for Campus Read committees. So why don't you take this next one and take it from here?
Okay. So I don't know if you've heard of Tara Westover's book, Educated, but that is the book that we've chosen as the Campus Read. Everybody give it a big round of applause. Woo! Campus Read. Okay, so Tara Westover, have any of you read Educated? Okay, several of you. So the deal is that Tara Westover was born living on a mountain in rural Idaho, I believe it was, and she was homeschooled, and she basically lived out on this mountain with her family. Her family members were survivalists, and she didn't go to school. She learned to can in the summer and to work in the junkyard in the rest of the year, and so she had a very, I would say, limited worldview that was it revolved very much around the worldview of her parents. And so she decided to go to college and managed somehow to I think she must be brilliant, study and pass the SAT and get into Brigham Young University. When she went there, and she describes going to college and not knowing, for example, what the Holocaust was and asking that in a college class. And living with roommates who were kind of surprised at her slovenly ways. Because she grew up in a junkyard and really had a mindset that if you didn't have grease all over your body, you were probably pretty clean. And she began to study and began to discover this world of knowledge. And she began to change as a person. And by the end of the book, she has managed to get a PhD from, I believe it was Oxford.
Cambridge.
Cambridge, sorry. I always confuse my English institutions of higher learning. Anyway, so she gets a PhD from Cambridge, thank you very much, and is a very changed person based on the fact that she is indeed educated. I was very fortunate to get to meet Tara Westover and have dinner with her and a group of other people at a conference this year. She's very down to earth. And many of the themes of isolation, living on a mountain, living in a rural area, having a worldview that is based on perhaps the people that you grew up with and not perhaps what happens in the rest of the world. Many of these themes, I think, will resonate with our students. So I'm very excited about it. Is this your part?
No, that's still your part.
Okay, so one of the many beautiful passages states, "My life was narrated for me by others. Their voices were forceful, emphatic, absolute. It had never occurred to me that my voice might be as strong as theirs." So clearly, there are so many different ways that you can take her work. It's beautifully written. You can talk about things like isolationism. You can talk about world philosophies. One of the things that I find most fascinating in this book is her construction of self, okay? Not only as somebody who has just a completely different world experience than many people who she was going to college with, but also the construction of self as a woman. There are just so many great things you can jump into here and really discuss.
All right, so I kind of divided up the themes into two parts. One is the sort of general themes that any lay reader might engage. And you can see there are a bunch of them. One of the themes and one of the subplots to this that's probably worth knowing about before you go into it, especially if you have students who have experienced this particular trauma, is there is a plot line about domestic violence. If you are the kind of person who believes that trigger warnings are appropriate for students who have experienced that, that might be the time to offer that. That said, it is a book about a lot of different things, right? And so this is just one through line. So we have these separatists, this separatist family. The whole first part of the book is her growing up. And on her way to this moment in which she leaves for college. The second part is her undergraduate experience, which I think is really spot on for all of our populations, but especially our first-year population. And then the third part is about her experience of her graduate work. And I think this is a really unique opportunity. We haven't used the campus read to engage graduate students on this campus much, and I'm very hopeful that we've got somebody in the programming committee from Office of Graduate Education and Life who is a graduate student who's going to be sort of working with us to help think about programming for grad students as well. So we have this sort of, at one level, there's this, I don't want to say spectacular or sensational because it seems like these things all happened, but it really is a kind of a larger than life family situation. But that as this person moves through a kind of extraordinary educational experience, we also then get all kinds of college student experiences, especially first-generation experiences or rural students coming to larger population center experiences that are the sorts of things that most of our students are experiencing at some level, just sort of blown up. So the next slide is the campus reading, the coordinating committee went through the book over the last couple of weeks, and we have been sort of looking at what are all the ways in that we can really connect to student experience issues, right? So making big life choices, study skills and patience, maximizing class participation. I'm not going to read all of these for you. I can send the PowerPoint to anybody who wants it, A. And B, you'll see that we have these coming up in another place in just a second. The key here is, and this is one of the things that, let me back up. I'm a scholar of nonfiction and life writing, like that's one of the things that I do. I don't think that this is a perfect book, right? As a scholar of memoir, I'm a critic, that's what I do, right? So I have critiques of it. As somebody who wants to start conversations, both critical conversations and productive conversations, I think this book is actively perfect, right? One of the ways that I think it's perfect is that she undergoes so many things that are what we call the hidden curriculum or the hidden syllabus, right? The things that Folks who are second and third generation college know because it's in the water, but first gen students don't necessarily know, or students who haven't talked about this closely with their parents don't necessarily know. She talks about the moment of discovering that it's okay to go to a faculty member's office hours. Is one of those things that we, as faculty members, are like, oh yes, duh, right? But students often feel incredibly intimidated by. Right? So there are a lot of these experiences that she narrates in these positive ways that if students are reading about these, they are the kinds of things that it's one fewer time that we have to say, oh, you know, you could go to office hours, or oh, you know, talking in class has these dynamics. I think they're still worth conversations, but one of the things that this book does is it kicks those conversations up, right? And so as we go forward, one of the things that I'm hopeful for is that as a lot of first-year students, but also students all along the career path, think about that second section where she's in college and really learning what it means to be in an institutional setting, navigating an institution, navigating the culture of a classroom, right, which many of us have been in all our lives, but first-gen students are in a different way than ever before, and she's never been in it all, right? So a lot of these things that we think of as invisible or as part of the, you know, in the water, get made explicit in this book in ways that I think can be very productive for our students. So to that end, we are developing a graphic. No, what we're calling our Campus Read Kit, which has some things in it. Susan, do you want to take over from here?
Sure, I think the things are on the next slide, though.
Yeah, go for it, click.
All right, so you have with you, in your hand, bookmarks, right? So how many bookmarks have we created altogether?
5.
5. So we'll give you, should you so desire, 5, or we'll give you 30 bookmarks, and from each of the 5 areas, so that you can use them in class, and not just to pass out. There are ways that you can use these bookmarks as literal educational devices, as manipulatives with your students. So we will give you those. We'll give you a book, okay? And this year, for the first time ever, we have developed some prompt cards, okay? So what these are, I only have 5 sets here with me, but so you can pass them around and share and look at them. But the idea here is that you get a set of prompt cards, and you can use them in class. You can use them, here you go, with students in various ways to write, to discuss, to do things, whatever the imagination desires, and it will depend on your class. Not all prompts are appropriate for all groups. Not all prompts are appropriate for all educational levels, okay? But there are a lot of different prompts here that you can use. And I'm sure that many of you have had the experience of thinking, holy cow, how am I going to integrate the information that we have to cover today with the Campus Read? Well, the goal here is to give you some prompts to do that. Or holy cow, we've got to discuss something in class today. I don't even know where to begin. How can I make it interesting? People find it interesting if they can take, they can manipulate, and you give them an index card, and you hold, and they can look through them, okay? So we will give you all of these, sort of like your own little HelloFresh box, but not with food, with Campus Read, okay? Maybe we'll make this a yearly thing. If everybody likes it, every year you'll get a subscription, and you'll get a new little class in a box. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, so this is what we're planning, so that everybody has some tools with which to go in and talk about the Campus Read at your fingertips, all right?
Okay, so a couple of things here. One, you will see that the prompts that are going around are sort of printed out. We're going to be designing them up because it's still May.
Yeah, these are kind of small. Like if you're like me and you're over the age of 40, you can't read them because they're the print is so small. We're going to work on that. These are just kind of mock-ups.
So a couple of things. One, if you would rather just have the prompts in a big document, we have that. 2, if you would like to add to the prompts, we would love that. 3, all of those things that I said that were sort of specific to first-year students, we have a prompt on each of those and sometimes multiple ones. 4, this is a thing that I think people really struggled with last year with Station 11, is that as a novel, it was difficult to excerpt, right? So you kind of had to be all in on it. While there's a single narrative here, it's also written in a very episodic way. So it's very easy to pull out individual chapters or even sections within chapters. What we've done is we've built each of these prompts around excerpts, sometimes as small as a single quote, sometimes as large as a chapter, but really that's where we've gone. So that what you can do is, if you are in a situation where you're not building your class around reading an entire memoir, but there is a 7-page chapter that you can say, students read this chapter, let's work on this particular component of the narrative, let's work on these particular issues, we think it's a little more usable. That said, Susan has taught English composition and first-year seminar. Anne, who worked with us, has taught both of those things. I've taught both of those things. So in some ways, there's definitely an Englishy thing going on here. And so that piece where I said, if you have prompts that come from your expertise that you would like to contribute to this, we are very eager to solicit those and crowdsource them. So as you see them, that would be great. Or as you think of them, send them to us. I have a sign-in sheet. I was really optimistic, so it's 2-sided and multiple pages. It asks for your name, your department, unit, and what you can do is circle which of these resources that you might like. So a book, a bookmarks, or a prompt deck. Now, I will say, I was not sure when I wrote this up if we were going to be able to do this. We have about 28 copies, which there are fewer than 28 people in the room. Because this book is still in hardcover, the great success of this book meant that they pushed the paperback release date back by a year, even though the book's been out for over a year. So cost on these is higher than it's been in the past, and we don't have as many to distribute centrally through the Campus Read. But if you are in a position where you might be teaching it, you might be building a program around it, you might be in a position to distribute it to other folks in your unit, you should feel free to come grab one. If you are in a position to just grab a free book, I would ask you to maybe wait till we've got these out to the key stakeholders around campus before you do that. So the other thing that I have on here is if you're interested in participating on either the selection committee for Campus Read for future years or the programming committee, you can circle that. If you leave that blank, I will almost certainly not call you back and say, are you sure you don't want to be on a committee? But only almost certainly.
And if you're at a branch campus, we can always have you phone in. That's no problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
You can run, but you cannot hide.
From Susan. I let you hide. And if neither of those things, but you're just here, please let us know anyway, because I want to know who's interested in the Campus Read. Because we put you on an email list called Friends of the Campus Read, and that's how we really get you.
You never get off. It's like the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
All right, so next, do we want to do the bookmarky thing?
Yeah.
Once you do it.
All right. All right, so everybody, you have 2 bookmarks. I want you to look at your bookmarks. I want you to look at the person next to you or behind you or whatever and tell them what about this bookmark resonated with you. What about the quote on it resonated that made you think, oh, yeah, made you perk up. So we're going to do the one about you first, not the one about the students, the one about you. So go ahead and tell the person next to you. Okay, now tell them about the one that you pulled out for the students, the one that you think will resonate with the students, okay? And talk about that. All right. I was going to, everybody clap your hands. Everybody who can hear me, clap your hands twice. Everybody who can hear me, clap your hands 3 times. I love that one. I learned it at Venture, West Virginia last year. Okay, so I was going to let you go on for a long time until Ryan reminded me we were standing between you and lunch, and then we thought, okay, so let's come back as a group. So now we're going to talk about you and your experiences, not students and their experiences. We're going to do that next. You and your experiences. Can somebody tell me why, what bookmark you chose and why?
And I may read the quote back so that that it gets captured for the webcast. Oh, we have a microphone.
Can I say something really quick?
Okay, yes, but hold on. But
Yes, but you're volunteering to go first after you say something.
Okay, that's fine.
Go for
I
it.
don't need that.
No, but they need it for the webcast.
So I'm really good. Oh, God. The thing that's really exciting about this book is that, honestly, it's not like a Waco situation. The family is actually relatable. So if you have rural students or students whose family own their own business or students who, lived on a mountain, this is just the family. You can throw a rock at the grandmother's house from their house, and the grandmother thought they were all crazy. So this isn't some huge, what do you call those? Compound of, survivalists. It's just the family. So I just thought that was really important.
I'm glad you did. Now, tell us which bookmark you chose for yourself, not
because
for
you're
the
on the hook
student.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, I chose the skill I was learning was a crucial one, the patience to read things I could not yet understand. I am a first-generation student, and I was an English major, and even though I was always an avid reader, I do feel like over the years, if I came to a passage I didn't understand, they'd explain it to me the next day. So it wasn't until I was in graduate school that I was like, hey, this is a learning moment. I can put this together myself. I just have to really read it and take my time. So that just dawned on me, several years ago.
But isn't it helpful? Because I don't know about you, but then I sit down to figure out why the dishwasher doesn't work. And I don't know why it doesn't work, but I get out the owner's manual and I read it, and I don't understand it, but I read it again.
And it dawns on you in the same way. This is a learning moment for me.
If I can get through King Lear, I can get through this, right? So, yes. All right, who else will share with us? I got excited. I thought, Clint, you were going to share with us, and I remembered you were the holder of the microphone. How about back here in the green sweater?
The quote I picked was, "An education is not so much about making a living as making a person." And just to give you a little context, I work in the College of Education, and I am also a first-generation college student, and my family thinks me going to school 3 times was ridiculous because it was that much more income I didn't have. And so
My grandfather once said to me, more earn and less learning, sweetheart.
Yeah.
He actually said those words out loud to me.
Oh, no, and my family also criticized my decision to go into education. But I think with the rhetoric now, and especially being an preparing future educators, I really want them to know that this isn't all about just capitalism and we come to school to get a job, and I feel like that rhetoric is just getting stronger and stronger. So that really resonated to me. It can't just be about making money. So that's it.
If it were, we'd all be in petroleum engineering, wouldn't we?
I know, I would not have gone into education. Yeah.
All right, one more about yourself. Okay, how about one about your students? Which one did you pick that you thought would resonate with your students? I'm going to have to start calling on people. Oh, you there.
Well, no, because I'm going to be disruptive.
Oh.
So, because I didn't even pick up a bookmark because I'm sort of on the campus read committee, so I was pretending to not be part of this. And I hated this bookmark. So the one that's up on the screen, I didn't like it. I wouldn't pick it. I didn't want us to pick it for our students.
It had never occurred to
It had never occurred to you that you have as much right to be here as anyone. So there's all kinds of reasons I don't like it. I don't like that it's second person. I feel like it's telling someone how they feel. There's all kinds of reasons.
I kept trying to edit it when I was typing it
Yeah,
out. I kept trying to say
there's
no.
all kinds of reasons I don't like it. But I'm going to say that I was persuaded by some other people in our small group who were deciding the bookmarks who said there are students for whom this is going to resonate. And so you need to put that out there. So it needs, and this is, I think, one of the things that is useful, again, about this book is that, as Virginia said, this book doesn't resonate for me. It's not my experience in any way, right? But there's so many really weird, disparate experiences that she's had from the self-starting business and then the mental illness, and that there's so much for our students to pick up on, and so I'm just going to mention that.
All right. So Anne did not like that bookmark, but I was one of the people who tried to convince her because I feel very strongly that many of our students are suffering from what we call what? The imposter syndrome. And perhaps some of us felt it in graduate school pretty hard. Some of us still kind of think it. But anyway, I don't know. I'm up here. I don't know. But anyway, so that is one for some people. For some students, I think that it would be would resonate. Not for everybody. I totally get that. Anybody else see a bookmark that you thought, boy, I can use this with my students? Yeah.
My bookmark says, the skill I was learning was a crucial one, the patience to read things I could not yet understand. I taught the campus read in ESL 140, and they had a hard time understanding the scientific kind of words, and they were like, is this about aliens and different things? But as their understanding began to increase, by the end, they were like, I went to meet the author. She was on campus, you know, and it was so exciting for me to see the book they bucked in the beginning become something that when they come in class, oh my gosh, what about that last chapter, you know? And they couldn't understand in the beginning, but they fought hard, and by the end they were able to discuss it and really enjoy it, and I enjoyed teaching it. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yay, that's awesome. Okay, so well, there are two more that we didn't read, so apparently these were the duds. The first one was, my life was narrated for me by others. It never occurred to me that my voice might be as strong as theirs. Okay? And my grandfather, you know, who said more earning, less learning, had a pretty strong voice in my family. But you know what? He's dead and I have a PhD, so haha. No, but I do think it's important when you're constructing yourself, okay, that you have to realize that you grow up and your voice is an important voice, and you're not a child anymore.
The other one is there's a sense of sovereignty that comes from life on a mountain. And I think that part of this is there are ways that we will be able to draw very clear, direct parallels, right, for our students. And this is another piece of it is again, this is me coming from this sort of critical version of it. She becomes a scholar of 19th century religious and intellectual history, right? And it is not lost on me that she writes this in the form of a conversion narrative, right? It's her conversion to contemporary approaches to education.
English teacher moment.
Which was, of course, an incredibly important genre in religious and intellectual history in the late 18th and early 19th century. So thanks for coming to my TED Talk. But the key here is I also think that there are ways in which we can read against the grain in this book that there are, and I'm going to get a little sort of English jargony here, there are ways that this book also narrates in a way that it feels a lot like Uplift, but there's violence done to her family relationships, right? There is trauma there that's not just physical trauma. And there are two ways of reading this narrative of educational transformation. And I think that this book also gives us ways, especially if we read against the grain, to help students think about what's valuable about the life that they're leaving behind and what's difficult about negotiating that, right? And that I think that it's important for us to not soft pedal that in sort of giving this like, look, she's great. She left that behind and went on to this, right? Without also noting, like, she got a lot that we, you know, who came up out of, you know, I came up out of the lower middle class, right? The idea of college was always a given for me, right? She has skills that I never developed because I was told, go read books. Don't go out and figure out how this large machine works when you're age 9. Admittedly, lots of people almost die in this book. So there's that. But I think there are ways to talk about alternative knowledges.
You don't know how to can peaches, but I do.
I actually do. But
Bet you I'm better at it.
you're certainly better
You
at
were
it.
waiting for the second. You don't have a bug out bag.
But I think there's a lot, and this quote, I think, also gives students a way in to talk about what they miss about home, right? What is valuable to them about the place that they come from, and what might still be terrifying about the place that they are now. So I don't want this one to get lost in the shuffle.
Did we get them all?
We got them all.
Okay. So the next thing we're going to do quickly is I would like to look at these prompts. So I kind of just passed out decks of the cards. These are pretty much samples, drafts. There's a much better version coming. So don't depend on this. Plus, you may go blind trying to read it because the print is so small. Thank you very much, PowerPoint. But what I'd like you to do in groups of 2, 3, 4 is just kind of look through the cards quickly and pick out a prompt that you think you might use in class, okay? Okay, so who has a deck of cards in their hand? Okay, so maybe you can go hang out.
I also just printed them out on regular
No,
paper.
you didn't because you didn't have all of them.
Well, I have some of them, but
But I
I'm
printed
just
them
gonna,
out on regular paper with more of them, so there.
here.
All right, so we're kind of moving along here. What did you find that you thought you might use in a class, that you thought might be usable? All right, so
Nothing.
clearly this was a mistake. We won't be using these in class. You haven't had time. Okay, could you read the one about study skills and patience?
In chapter 6, after her older brother Tyler leaves for college, Tara and her brother Richard both find ways to pursue knowledge. At the end of the section, Westover writes, "The skill I was learning was a crucial one, the patience to read things I could not yet understand," the bookmark. So the prompt, patience is an under-discussed part of learning. In what subjects will you need to exercise the most patience with ideas you do not yet understand? How can you remind yourself to be patient enough to work through that difficulty? What tactics will you use to incentivize and reward patient learning? So I just feel like the students, especially the freshmen, they don't know how to study. So just finding their way and having the patience to work through it.
So would you give the deck of cards, would you just pass it out and have everybody pick one?
I don't
and talk
know.
about it, or would you have them write about it? Or
I don't know yet.
Okay, but you're thinking about
I'm
it.
thinking about it.
Okay. Rhonda, what did you find here?
I'm gonna build on that. I'm probably loud enough, I don't need this. But now I lost my train of thought, that's great.
You're gonna build
No, I build on it, really kind of having that conversation, first of all, about the patience and seeing the connections in their learning and with GEFs. So how often we hear students talk about their GEFs, and I don't understand why I have to take this, I don't see how this is relevant. They want to come, they want to take their major classes, and they want to leave.
Yeah.
And so we need to instill that patience in making those connections and how it can actually make for a better experience.
Yeah. A student wrote in my SEI last semester, she keeps talking about, this is an intro to business class, she keeps talking about China, and I don't understand why. This is a class about business, not about China. And I was like, oh, I have failed you. Okay, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a comment about skeptics of experts in science. And I'm a biologist, and of course, it concerns me today about this idea of 10,000 lies by the president. What is data interpretation? What is factual? This whole idea of anti-vaxxers. There's so many issues, and especially our National Academy of Sciences, a tremendous advisory body that so many people ignore. So there's so many things here, I think.
Speaking as somebody who managed to get the whooping cough as an adult because of the anti-vaxxer thing, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It was ugly. Yeah.
But also, in science, not only experts in science, but it's important to be critical.
Yeah. Yes. All right, who else? Let's do one more. One more. Then you get to eat lunch almost. I guess you're not hungry. Okay, so let's move on.
I made the mistake of moving on to the next slide, which always cuts off the last thing you're doing. It's my fault.
Yeah.
So here are ways to get involved. And you guys are already here, so I know you've self-selected in, so I need you to be evangelical as well. One, use it in your classrooms. And I think because we've tried to work hard to get these sort of excerpts out there are ways to use this in any number of classrooms. Even if this is not connected to your subject matter, there are ways to sort of take a step back and do some of this metacognitive stuff about how it is that we think in here, how it is that you might conduct yourself in the classroom. Announce and attend campus read events, and we'll be working on those over the summer and announcing a slate of those in the fall. Create programming where you are, even if you're not on the Campus Read Committee. Don't hesitate to say, hey, I'd like to do a Campus Read program. We had a student who runs a student club contact us last year and say, hey, my student org would like to do a Station 11 program. Can you help us? And all they really needed was to help them find a room and advertise it on our page, but especially as different places require out-of-class experiences. This is a way to get other groups together. So if you are thinking about something that you can connect that might be of interest to students in other disciplines as well, please start that, but then let us know so that we can list it. I expect, we're still hammering out the budget pieces. I expect we're going to have a few small grants available for folks if you need to do a program that requires some resources. We may well be able to continue to underwrite that. If you're interested in really connecting with us, you can join our programming committee. And then for the future, right? If you want to send us suggestions for future campus reads, the Campus Read website, which is campusread.wvu.edu, has a link to it where you can go on and suggest future texts for us to review. We have a selection committee of faculty from around the campus who will probably narrow it down to 5-ish finalists. Where we will read them as a group and discuss the merits of each one. We also run a 1-credit honors book study group where they read it and talk about it, and so there's an opportunity for student input as well. And then at the very least, if you're interested and not already on the massive Friends of Campus Read email list, this is really just a way for you to keep in the loop when we have announcements, when we do calls for committees, or we release our programming schedule for next year. That's really just an email list that we use 4 or 5 times a year to push information out, the high level stuff about what we're doing. The last thing on here, and we didn't get a slide on it, is that please mark your calendars for November 11th. Because on November 11th, Tara Westover is coming to campus.
I've heard her speak. She's fantastic.
Yeah, and I have to say, a book that's an author whose book has been in the top 10 bestseller list for about a year now is not easy to get to campus. So I'm going to give a shout out to the University Events folks and the Festival of Ideas folks who were able to seal the deal on that. They've got her here, so we're going to have her here for a day to come talk to our campus community. So I'm pretty excited about that. So as we wrap up, do you all have any questions for Susan and I?
Good choice.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to say that as I've told other people about this book, and then they've read it, and then they go, oh my God, and everybody just keeps wanting to talk about it. So I think it's going to be a really interesting year of conversations. The more people that read this book, the more conversations everybody wants to have about it. So.
Well, go forth and read.
Great, thank you all. Oh, and if you need to come up and get yourself a book, we have copies.